If Oscar Wilde is the sort of idealized Prince of Bohemia of students and all that kind of good stuff.
All that kind of garbage.
Yeah. Where does the sort of corruption in the latter half of Dorian Gray sort of seep into that kind of image, or if it does at all, in your opinion?
This is a very, very good question, Dorian Gray. So he's this. I've raised him up to a pitch of perfection which no human being could possibly achieve. And of course, what's extraordinary about Oscar was that he had the most prophetic gift, I think, about his own life. He instinctively and at base knew all his weaknesses. He puts it in De Profundis. What were paradoxes to me in the sphere of the mind became perversities to me in the sphere of the body. I became careless of other people. And I forgot that the smallest act we do in the darkness is revealed in the light of day. He's incredibly hard on himself in De Profundis. And extraordinarily, in his first and only novel, A Picture of Dorian Gray, he's very hard on himself too. He's hard on the set that he represents. Lord Henry Wotton is a character that very much is like Wilde, makes these very amusing characters, sort of remarks, he's talking about Americans and, we have so much in common, and he murmurs, except of course language. And that's the first use of that now very sort of common distinction between England and America. But he knew that every pleasure must be paid for, as it says in Twelfth Night. It has its price, and you cannot escape that appalling calculus. There's a kind of scales. And in the Victorian time, they were even more clear, because of what I mentioned earlier, syphilis, from which Winston Churchill's father died, was one of the most glorious figures of his age, now largely forgotten because of the glories of Winston, but Lord Randolph was Home Secretary, the most brilliant man of his time, the most brilliant orator of his time, became a gibbering, trembling, appalling, ill-tempered wreck who disintegrated in front of his adoring son's eyes, who all he wanted to do, Winston, was be his secretary. And it's the most tragic story of the usual thing, which is a son trying to live up to his imperious father. But there's an example of the price that you pay for pleasure, which we have less. People would say that the AIDS epidemic was a reminder of that to some extent, as any sexually transmitted disease is a reminder that that particular kind of pleasure, of course, has its price. But so do other pleasures. When you toy with people's affections, it isn't free. We all know that, even in, at any age. We all know that. And Wilde knew it. And in his children's stories, which are absolutely sob-makingly brilliant, which he wrote for his two sons, he always comes against the selfish giant. The very title, The Selfish Giant, is Oscar himself. And it's so heartrending that he knew that he was somehow, another wonderful title, The Remarkable Rocket, in which he gives life in a fantastic anthropomorphic way to a rocket, who's the most sort of full of himself in a box full of fireworks, and who, of course, has one explosive moment thinking, this is it, you see, I told you I was the most glorious figure in the world. I told you how great I was. And then a dead stick falls to the ground. And that's, it's so true and so obvious, like all great art. Of course we knew that, but we need to be reminded. And he did know. I can't quite quote from memory, but it's nearly from memory, the final paragraph of the great Richard Ellman biography. If I can say this without weeping, I have to take a very deep breath. He comes to us now, his life freed from shame, a greater figure than ever, a towering figure, laughing and weeping, full of fables and paradoxes, belongs to our age more than that of Victoria. Here he is, so wise, so right, so true. And I think he understood himself better than anybody. But a good question. You've given me your coffee, bastards!